next one, number 4. We want to calculate the difference. All right, this should be a pretty easy question. I'm going to time you. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, go.
All right, I think I got it.
All right, you're right at 1 minute. I am still working. That. All right, I'm done. I'm gonna call myself a minute 10. I'm gonna call you 1 minute. What do you got?
I got 5w squared plus 6w to the 4th plus 2w plus 9.
Okay, let's see here. I agree with you on some parts of that. I think I disagree on, I think it's negative for the squared term. And then 6w squared, you said? Sorry, to the 4th. And then plus 9, I definitely agree. All right, so let's kind of unpack this problem, and let's look at this, because what do they do with the
would it be plus 4w?
I got
minus 4w.
Yeah, I got minus 4w. So again, I'm kind of introducing the timer here, not to like pressure you into making mistakes, but just to kind of give you a realistic sense of how long these things take. Yeah. And then whether or not you get them right or wrong. If you get the question wrong, then we just kind of lost all the time that we spent doing it, right? Like we might as well, in effect, have just guessed, regardless of whether the guess was correct or not, and then spent that time on another question where we could have like confidently scored some points, right? Again, it's all about the methodology. So let's look at this problem. Let's unpack it a little bit. What do they do first off to trip us up? Out of the gate, let me move this thing down just so I can write some notes about the problem itself. So the very first thing they do is it's 2w to the 4th minus w plus 7. That looks fine. That looks normal. That's how I'd kind of expect to see it. But then, along with the minus sign, which requires a distribution across the rest of it, they give us an out-of-order polynomial. What'd you say?
Oh, are you saying the thing that trips us up is the 5w squared is first?
Yeah, exactly. It's out of order and only slightly so. And I think because it tripped me up for because I didn't even realize it at first. Again, with the timer running.
Either. Yeah, that's why I put the 5w squared first.
Yeah. So, and honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the order, right? This is addition and subtraction. It's not like order of operation comes into play here. This is not an order of operations question at all. So order is largely irrelevant, except when it comes to the human tendency to make careless mistakes when you're combining like terms. And our underlying assumption is almost, I'm not going to say always, but it's almost always that the terms are in order. Notice how they led off with a polynomial that was in order, and then it was the next one that was out of order.
Yeah.
If it was the other way around, we would have probably gotten tipped off a little bit, to expect it, or if we're reading it so quickly, we wouldn't notice it anyway, either way, leading or last term. But certainly by leading with one that's in order, they almost trick you like, all right, here you go. And then, what happens next is probably a careless mistake. But by realizing that we're out of order here, that was when I had to, so I did the distribution right off the bat to kind of get me from here to here.
Oh, okay.
I just did the distribution straight up, just changed the signs, just so I know what I'm looking at is at least mathematically correct. Even if it's out of order and unorganized, it's, the math is good. So then once you've kind of done that, then you're free to kind of play around with the order of everything as you group the like terms together. And that's where I took this kind of intermediate step here, where you'll notice this part here hasn't changed. And let me actually go through and erase these little cross throughs, because that's another thing that I do. I always encourage when you have like a long list of things, like terms that you're trying to combine, or if you don't have a calculator and you're trying to calculate the median of a set of data is another example where I think crossing stuff out as you get to like that middle term is helpful. But so you'll notice the first part here hasn't changed, and we didn't do any math here. We just reorganized the last half of this. Like that, like that went there. This went back here. This comes over here, right? Everything kind of goes where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that is what allowed me, as I crossed off, all right, there's to the fourth, there's to the fourth. That gives me my 6, right? And then on down the line. So again, algorithmically trying to eliminate the possibility of error. If it takes you only, I don't know, 3 seconds, 8 seconds to like rewrite that last half of the polynomial to get the question correct, to eliminate the possibility of that careless error, I think that's hands down worth it, as opposed to not taking that intermediate step, and then effectively you're wasting the entire minute that we got a wrong answer to show for it, right? You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not saying that speed's not important, but I'm saying that if we're willing to invest 92% of the time into a wrong answer, then that last marginal 8% of time, 10% of time is really, really valuable. You know, it's definitely worth spending that extra 10 seconds. And literally, that was what it was, right? I think I stopped the watch of you right at a minute, and then I took like, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 seconds longer. But the answer was correct. So, and we definitely don't want, we do not, SAT or ACT, we do not want to miss a question like that, right? Would you say that there's definitely harder questions. There's definitely harder questions that I'm more willing to miss. Like I'm willing to let, you know, some kind of crazy off the wall question go, as long as I got, you know, 80% of the test correct. You know, when they give you these easy ones, that's where you just got to capitalize on those. All right, let's do number 5 real quick before we start it. Do you remember how to calculate the area of a triangle, any given triangle?
Isn't it 1/2 base times height?
Very good. You ready to go? All right, go. All right, how are we looking on that one?
All right, I'm kind of confused though.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the timer. We're at 1 1/4 minute, 1:15. What has you confused?
Okay, so I got the length and then divided it by half, but I'm not sure how to find the actual area.
Ooh, okay. So I think the order of your approach is probably what's leading to the most confusion. Luckily, half of the base length would still be an even number of the coefficients, right? The 2 divided by 2 is 1, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that wouldn't give you any weird like 1/2s or like stuff that might trip you up or make you feel inclined that you've done something wrong. I don't know. Do you agree that sometimes like an answer feels like it should be even, and if you get some kind of like 8.2 that it's wrong, like you should have gotten a whole number? We're going to talk about that later too. Probably not today, probably in another episode of test taking things, but that is definitely an inclination that many people share. And it's not always correct. It can sometimes be correct, and I think it has to do with like what grade level you're talking about. Once you kind of get up into the high school area, kind of anything is fair game. So anyways, coming back to this question, I want to show you my approach. I just kind of wrote out, kind of how you calculate the area of a triangle. And I would encourage you.
Oh, wait, I did get it right.
Did you? 3x plus 9xy?
Yeah, I thought like it was an actual number. This is what I got. Yeah, I did if you could see that.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I thought I had to get like an actual number, like 9.
Oh, you know what? And you got the squared part right. I didn't even do that. Yeah, it's 6x squared, 3x squared.
Okay, yeah, all right. So then all right, yeah, then I should be fine on that.
Yeah, tons of little places to make mistakes, right? And again, I'm not setting the timer to like make you feel pressured to, do wrong answers quickly, but that's just kind of the reality of the SAT prep. All right, so no questions there. We both did the same thing here. I think we divided by 2 last.
Yeah, I did that.
Doing that towards the end, if possible, is a good way to avoid those numbers that we don't work well with in our head. Okay, next, number 6. You want to calculate the area of a swimming pool. Coach tells you that the length is 12 less than 5 times the width. What is the area of the pool? Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, go.
I got it. I don't know that.
Okay, you good? Let's see. What's your answer? All right, so Ooh, right away, one thing I want to point out. Picture. It's going to help you big time.
Oh, okay.
Any kind of geometry problem?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Any kind of geometry problem, or I'm not even going to limit it to geometry. You could, if you can draw a picture, try to do it. It'll take you like 2 or 3 seconds to draw something, really easy like this. It may take you a little bit longer to draw a more complicated shape, or other illustrations, a plane flying overhead at an angle of depreciation and yada yada, right? A picture is going to help you 100% on all of these questions. So
Okay.
tip number 1 is picture, and then everything else should be self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Does this part make sense?
The 5, yeah, it does.
Okay, all right. And I just wrote my time down. It was like 20 seconds. And I'm not saying any of none of this stuff is designed to make you feel like bad, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to like call you out or so like, oh, you should be able to do this quicker. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like a prepared student should be able to do this without any kind of incredible like mental ability. As I say that out loud, it sounds kind of demeaning, but I don't mean it like that.
No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay, cool. Let's go to number 7. What do we got here? We've got a multiple choice. So you are free to use the power of process of elimination here if it helps you out. I have not looked at this question yet. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, go.
So far, I have x cubed plus 4x squared. I think it's D.
Okay. Can I show you mine?
Yeah.
All right, so this is exactly like, I'm going to stop that. My timer says 1 minute and 12 seconds as of right now, but I wrote down my time here. Half a minute problem, and I got answer B. So let me ask you this. When you went to, obviously calculating the volume of the prism involves multiplying length times width times height, right?
Yeah.
So when you went to multiply all that stuff together, did you notice that 2 of the dimensions were the same?
Yes, I did.
So at that point, we kind of boil back down to, like, if you wanted to write this question, so then I think part of that process, acknowledging that 2 of the dimensions are the same, brings it back to what we talked about earlier before, where we can square a polynomial really easily.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remember we talked about that before, AB?
Yeah.
So that got me to here really quickly.
Yeah, x squared plus 2x plus 1. Oh, I see what I did.
Okay, and then once you get there, then multiplying that other polynomial in is just one iteration of the window box, and it's pretty straightforward. Can I see your work? What did you do? Let me take a look. Did you start by multiplying x plus 1 times x plus 4?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It's kind of all jumbled up.
Yeah, that's fine. It's that, like, if I had to guess.
I actually messed up. I did x squared minus 2x plus 1. I don't know how I got that with 2 positives. I think I might have just rushed it, but
Yeah.
that screwed up my entire that entire problem.
Okay. Well, you see how the just adding a stopwatch, it almost adds like a difficulty layer almost, because you feel rushed, right?
Yeah.
But I want to reassure you because you've sat here and watched me like make math mistakes, like kind of almost embarrassingly so, right?
Yeah.
I would not classify myself as somebody with extraordinary math abilities, right? I'm just a regular guy who has practiced a lot. Once we translate it out of word problem and into a math problem, that's when that algorithmic multiplication of polynomials sense should kick in to square the like ones first. Like, and I never encourage people to do stuff in your head, but like the time savings on the shortcut are so real. And then, like I said, the rest of it is kind of explanatory. But yeah, that was about a half-minute question. And then again, the advantage that you gain by only spending half a minute on a question like that translates to a better shot on the really hard question that comes inevitably later down the line.